Hello everyone and welcome back to Sarang Menon Academy. In this video, we are going to explore what are loops and functions in Python. So let's get started. Let's first open Visual Studio Code and let's create a new file and let's name it as loops.py. So basically what are loops? Loops are the lines of code that we write and we that can run a repetitive task. For example, if I ask you to print numbers from 1 to 10, you can print 1, print 2, and so on till print 10. But if I tell you to print numbers from 1 to 100, you can print numbers from 1 to 100, like print 1, print 2, like this, until print 100. But wouldn't that be a tedious task and also time consuming task? So that's where loops come into play. In loop, I can define that you, I need to print numbers from 1 to 100 and then print that numbers, and then if I run the code, it will automatically print numbers from 1 to 100. Not only for printing numbers, for repeating any type of task, we can use loops. Now there are two types of loops in Python. The first type of loop is for loop and the second one is while loop. Now we use for loop when the number of repetitions here is known as iterations. So we use for loop when the number of iterations are known to us. For example, if I want to print numbers from 1 to 10, I know the number of iterations that I need to start from 1 and end till 10. And we use while loop when the number of iterations are unknown. For example, if I want to satisfy a specific condition where the number of iterations are unknown to me, I'll use while loop. So this is the major difference between for loop and while loop. Now, now let's implement for loop. So I'll just create a command called for loop, and then in order to create a for loop, I'll write for. Now this is the keyword. Then I. Now I is the variable. Here I can give any variable. Suppose I can give a or b, any variable I can give. But generally, people prefer to start from I, and then if I want to create multiple for loops inside the same program, people go on from the letters after I, such as J, K, L, M, and so on. So I'll also use I. So I'll write I, then I'll write in. That means I is in this for loop. Then I'll add range. Now, and then I'll open parenthesis. Now here, range means the number of iterations that I want. From which number to which and till which number I need the for loop to run. So in this case, I need to start my for loop from 1 until 10. But in Python, when we are specifying range, we need to, instead of giving 10, I need to give 11. Then only it will consider till 10. I need to give a number which is after 10, which is 11, in order the Python to understand that it needs to print numbers from 1 to 10. Now why am I not printing or writing just 11? Because if I simply write 11, for loop will work, but it will print numbers from 0 to 10. Now why 0 to 10? Because in the previous video, I've already explained that the concept of indexing. So the index range starts from 0 in Python. Not only in Python, in most of the programming language, the index range starts from 0. So here also, if I write simply 11, it will print numbers from 0 to 10. But here I want to print numbers from 1 to 10. So I'll write 1 comma 11. Then I'll put colon and then indentation will come. And here I'll write print I. Now if I run the code, as you can see, it prints numbers from 1 to 10. This is the for loop. It will print number from 1 to 10. Now this is how for loop works. Now in the similar manner, I can create while loop. So let's create a new file and let's name it as while loop.py. Now like I said earlier, in while loop, then we use while loop when the number of iterations are unknown, and while loop continuously run until the condition that we have given becomes false. And there might be some cases where the condition does not um, meet where the condition does not gets false. Means the condition is continuing, keep on continuing getting satisfying to true, and it doesn't become false. That is known as the infinite loop. Now, in for loop, there is no concept called infinite loop because the number of iterations are known and we specify. But in while loop, there is a concept called infinite loop where the condition never becomes false. So while programming, we need to keep in mind that there is a concept called infinite loop while using while loop. So we need to satisfy a condition, set the condition to, in a way that it doesn't become an infinite loop. Now in while loop, I need to specify the variable or declare the variable before the start of the loop. In for loop, we had specified it inside the loop. But in while loop, we'll specify it outside the loop. So I need to create the variable I. So I'll let I equal to 1. And then I'll write while. Then I'll specify the condition I less than 11, or let's say less than 10. Now it will print numbers till 9 only. And if I write print I, print I, then I write I equal to I plus 1. Now why am I writing I equal to I plus 1? This means that whenever the I is getting printed, that means the number is getting printed, the next iteration when it comes, it should add one more number to it. Like 1 plus 1 would be 2. So the next number would be 2. 2 plus 1 would be 3. So the next number would be 3. And so on. Like that. So if I run the code, as you can see, it prints the number from 1 to 9. But if I want to print the number till 10, like I said before, I need to write I less than 11. So it prints number from 1 to 10. But if I write I less than or equal to 10, now the number would print from 1 to 10. This concept is not there in for loop. We can't specify for loop like in range I less than or equal to 10. In while loop, but yes, we can specify. So in while loop, there is no concept of range like we specify the range from 1 to 11. If I want to print numbers till 10, I can directly write I less than equal to 10. But in for loop, I need to give a number which is after the number which I want to run. That means if I want to run till 10, I need to specify till 11. So this is the concept of for loop and while loop. These are the primary type of loops in Python. Now the second topic that we are going to learn in this video is functions. Now in mathematics, you have probably heard of functions, fnx like that. Now in programming also there is a concept called functions. So let's create a new file and let's name it as functions.py. Now what are functions? Basically functions are it's actually a mini program inside the main program, which means inside a main program, if I need to create a particular program, mini program that needs to be reused in another scenario in the same program, I can use functions. For example, if I want to create a function that adds two numbers, and then if I want to reuse that same function in the later part of the program, I need to add two numbers or add three numbers. I'll again call the same function. So that means I don't need to write the same line of code again and again, like print x plus y, print x plus y, x equal to 1, y equal to 2. I can just call the function once again. So functions are basically the reusable components that we create in a program in programming. So in order to create a function in Python, we'll write def. Now def stands for define. So that means we are defining a function. So I'll write def. Then I'll write the name of the function. So the name of function here is that we are going to create a function that adds two numbers. So I'll name the function as add, and then I'll put a colon. And before putting colon, I need to open parentheses. That means this is a function. Now without parenthesis, if we try to create the function, it will result in an error. So we need to always put parenthesis and then we need to give colon. And then if I press enter, and now if I write, let's say x is equal to 1, y equal to 2, print x plus y. This I have already created this function. Now in the later part, now I have come out of this function. Now as you can see, I have come out of this function because there is no space here. That means the indentation is not present. That means I have successfully come out of the function. Now here, if I want to use the function, I have to write the function name and then the parenthesis. I have to specify these two things, the function name and parenthesis. And then if I run the code, as you can see, it will print 3. Now in later part of this code, if I print something else, if I print, let's say if I print something else like welcome, and then if I want to again use this function, I'll just again call this function. And as you can see, it's being reused. This is the purpose of using functions. Now there is another concept inside functions itself, which is known as parameters and arguments. Now let me explain this concept by creating another function. Now let's create a function which subtracts two numbers. So I'll write define def subtract, open parenthesis and put colon. Now parameters are the variables that we give inside the function, which means I'll not specify here like this, like x equal to 1, y equal to 2. The moment when I need to call this function, that time I'll specify the numbers. Now, how this is useful is that at times it's not necessary that every time I need to add or subtract 1 and 2. Because in this function, I have predefined that x is 1 and y is 2. So whenever I call the function, I will only get the answer as 3. I cannot change the numbers. If I want to change the numbers, I need to modify the entire function. But by using parameters and arguments, I'll specify n number of variables here, and those variables are known as parameters, and then I'll write what those variables will do. If I write two variables a and b, and if I press enter, and then if I write print a minus b, and then if I come out of the function, and then if I need to call this function, I'll write subtract, and then I'll put parentheses. But here I will give two numbers. Now why two numbers? Because these two numbers are the actual values of a and b. So if I want to subtract 5 minus 1, I'll add 5, then I'll add comma 1. Now this is 5 minus 1. Now if I run this code, as you can see, it prints 4. Now again, if I want to call this function, and this time I need to subtract 4 and 3, I'll add 4 comma 3. And if I run the code, as you can see, the 4 stays as it is in the previous call, and this time it generates 1. Now these two numbers that we give here, which is 5 and 1 and 4 and 3, these are known as arguments. So parameters are the variables basically, and arguments are the values that we give. So this is useful because many times I need to calculate different numbers. So by using parameters and arguments, I can specify different numbers that I want, which in a normal function which we had treated earlier is rigid and it's not flexible. Which means I can only define the numbers which I've already specified in function and cannot change the numbers. For each use case, for each time when I call the function, I cannot change the numbers. So this is where parameters and arguments are very helpful. And now there is a challenge question. The challenge question is that you need to create a function which multiplies and another function which divides. Now it can be 2 numbers, 3 numbers, it can be n number of numbers. That's your wish. And do paste the code in the comment section below. And that's a wrap for this video. If you like this video, do not forget to hit that subscribe button, like this video and share it with your friends and family. Thank you for watching this video.